Thank you. It's great to be back here at Mississippi State, back in my university setting. I always love coming back to Starkville and being back on campus. I first kind of want to give you a little bit of background, so kind of introduction to who is this guy that you're talking with, and a couple of highlights for me. I graduated of 1989 degree in industrial engineering here from Mississippi State University. I was a member of the Delta Chi fraternity here on campus. At the time, we were off-campus fraternity. We were a little bit of some renegades back in the day. I did interfraternity council. I was a member of the Roadrunner organization under Jimmy Abraham, and I really loved my time here, but unfortunately I was not a great student while I was at Mississippi State University. My grades were not what they should have been, and so I will start off with the statement that hurt me early in my career, and so I recommend you use your time wisely while you're here at the university, and keep your grades up where you can. I am married. I did marry my wife here of 27 years, be 28 in June, Amy Gandy. She was an English education major. She called herself an EE major to folks, and I'm employed by a company, Cisco Systems, and I know part of y'all are thinking this is an entrepreneurs class, and Cisco is a company that has over 50,000 employees. What in the world does that have to do with being an entrepreneur? And I will tell you that the design of our company really promotes that entrepreneur spirit. And I'm also invested in a group of companies, and I'll talk to you about some of my successes and failures that I've done around that. I will say that I have a series of slides and stuff that I will go through with y'all, but ultimately I want to make this about what you guys want to hear about. If there are things that you say, I'm really curious about this experience that you've had, raise your hand, stop me. I want this to be interactive. And so I'm going to start off by asking you, are there things that you want to talk about today that you say, I wish, one of the guys who came and speak to us would talk to us about this? Anything? Yeah, just yell out.
Career path.
Career path. I will definitely go through that, absolutely. What else? In terms of what? That's a broad subject.
I guess how early stages of your career, or how your school helped your early stages of your career.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else? If y'all think of other things, please stop me along the way. I'm going to do this in two parts. One, I am going to talk about my path and how I've got to where I am. I'm going to talk about some of the entrepreneurial projects I've been involved in and the lessons learned I've done that. And then I really want to talk about the digital economy that we're in today. And I think we're in one of the greatest moments of digital transformation we've ever been a part of. And I want to talk to you about what that means, and really you ought to get excited, especially if you're in that field. There's going to be loads of opportunity going forward because we're making incredible advances. There's my family. I can't, that's who drives me, and I need y'all just to see who they are. My oldest daughter, there's my wife on the end, then my oldest daughter, she's in graduate school at Yale currently. My son, who's a junior in high school, who is wearing stuff that doesn't match. And my other daughter, who is graduating from a small college in Atlanta called Oglethorpe and is about to go to law school. But that's who drives me, and I'm here today because they support me, and they believe in who I am. I want to go over a couple of life lessons I learned while I was here at Mississippi State University, and it's probably not what you think. I learned a lot of these when I was a roadrunner. I was a student recruiter at Mississippi State University under the tutelage of Jimmy Abraham, who, if you know any of the history, he's a legend here in his ability. And the first lesson he gave me is be on time. To him, he taught the value because he said other people's time is also valuable, and so when you have an appointment, be on time. It sounds simple, but I would tell you it's a lost art in this day and age, and it will do you go a long way. Know people's names. There's a value in someone's name, and especially as an entrepreneur, as you're trying to win people over to what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to do. It's amazing how they light up the room when you call people by their name. When you speak to them under who they are. It's a simple thing. It's a learned art, but it takes time, but it goes a long way. Again, be kind. be kind. And I would be lying to you if people had always been kind to me in my career path and in the work that I've done. But those who have, I see doing far greater things than those who haven't. And the last thing I got from Jimmy Abraham is do good things, do good unexpected things. Don't always go with the flow. Don't always do what's expected. But go towards the good, but really try and be creative in your approach. Again, some simple life lessons that I learned here at Mississippi State from Jimmy's class that he had us take when I was a road runner. And the last one is be excellent in all you do. Anything worth doing is worth doing with excellence. And I can't say that enough. Anything worth doing is worth doing with excellence. So don't halfway do it at all. Let me talk to you about my career path. And it is a varied one. It started, so out of college, out of Mississippi State University, I went to work for a company in Huntsville, Alabama called Teledyne Brown Engineering. My first job, I was doing engineering support services to the Department of Defense. I worked on a program called the Forward Area Air Defense Systems, or FAD, and I did basically whatever the government wanted us to do engineering-wise, we would do. I hated that job. Hated it. It was a first job. I didn't mind Teledyne Brown Engineering, but I didn't like this job. But it was what was offered to me, and it was my only option. Again, let me go back to I wasn't a great student in school. I was an excellent interviewer, but I wasn't a great student. And so I used my interview skills to get my first job, and then I had to build off of that career, that job that I really didn't want, to take me forward. I moved from there and did a couple of other things. I worked for a company called Cass, and then I went and decided that naturally my natural bent in engineering was actually to move into technical sales and in technical marketing. I worked for a company called N&L Enterprises, and at that time I sold color graphic systems, or what we would call today color copiers. Very expensive at that point in time. The average color copier at that point in time ran about $90,000 a piece, and so I had a chance to do a very technical sale. To get someone to invest at that point in time into a color graphic system was a difficult thing, but it allowed me to cut my teeth in sales and marketing and learn a lot while I was there. And so that took me off my path into the world of technical sales and marketing, which is where I am today. Well, fast forward, I got a couple of roadblocks. I have a company, when I left N&L Enterprises, I worked for a company called Sigma Tech, and it was a mistake. I left N&L too quickly to go to this company called Sigma Tech, and I will tell you, I didn't stay there very long, but it was a mistake. It led me to a fun time. If you remember in the 90s when the .com era came up, I worked for a company called Net Mechanic, and I was director of business development on an online web presence that did HTML web validation, and it was a wild ride. It's the best MBA class I ever took. And the reason it was a great MBA class because it was all about learning to build a business from scratch. We started out with 3 people, 3 guys that I was friends with, building a company, working a company, and I had to do deal making, I had to do sales, I had to recruit new employees, I had to go meet with people who wrote press. I had to go to New York to meet with magazine folks. It was a really incredible host of things, and the founder of the company is a guy by the name of Jeff Morgan. My first day on the job, he came and handed me a contract and said, "Hey, I need to go negotiate this with Earthlink." And I said, "I don't know anything about contract negotiation." He goes, "Well, read over it tonight, do it tomorrow." And I just had to go do it. And the good thing about when you're an entrepreneur and when you're doing things like that is you get a chance to do stuff that you wouldn't naturally do. You wouldn't actually move into when you work for a large company like I work today. And so it's a lot of fun. And I highly recommend it if you're bent that way to go and work for a startup at some point in time in your career. I don't think people can make long-term careers out of it, but it is well worth, and you learn so much. You get so much out of it. From there, again, some other companies in between. I went into the manufacturing world and began working for product manufacturers. I worked for a company called Checkpoint Software Technologies. They did firewall. I worked for a company called BEA that made middleware software. And then I ended up at Cisco Systems. Cisco recruited me over to come and manage their NASA team and their NASA account. Today at Cisco, I manage the Air Force team. I manage the entire team of Cisco that calls on the Air Force nationally. And my team is responsible for about, I think our goal this year is $168 million worth of Cisco product sales and services to sell into the Air Force across the U.S. That's kind of where I am today. Any questions what I've done that so far? Yeah?
What sort of I guess, how long were you at your longest job and what's your shortest time?
That's a great question. Cisco is the longest company I've ever worked for, and I've worked for them 10 years. My shortest company I ever worked for was N&L Enterprises, and I worked for them 10 months. I will tell you, if you look at there's 10 jobs up there. I've changed jobs too much. Again, I'll just be honest with you. There were a couple of changes that needed to happen, but there were some that I did too quickly. I got those two red blocks there. Those were mistakes, and I should have stayed longer where I was before I changed the job. I got impatient. I wanted to move up, but I would have been better off if I'd have stayed where I was. Good question. Yes?
Well, you talked about those mistakes. What about them? Those mistakes?
So I'll put them in two different ones. So I left N&L Enterprises because I got scared. I got into this sales game. I mastered it. I was doing very well, and then I said, "Oh, I can't do this long term." I got scared and went back to my old type of career and job. And again, that was a mistake. I got back over there. I hated it, and I wasn't at that job very long before I went back into sales. And so it was out of fear. The other one, when I left. And went to Symbol, I needed to leave. It was time for me to leave Checkpoint Software Technologies, but I picked the wrong company to go to. I didn't do my research very well. I will tell you all this: when you're looking at companies, make sure you look at this company's culture. It's going to determine whether or not you're going to be happy or sad at your place. And if you don't do your due diligence to understand what the company's culture is like, you're going to regret it. I'll give you an example. Cisco's culture is very much in line with who I am. It's a culture of winning. It's a culture of hard work, and it's a culture of fun, and all that together makes it it's a family environment, but it's a great culture, and I love being there, and that's why I've been there 10 years, the longest place I've ever worked. Anything else? I want to show y'all a video, and I'm not going to set it up, but it's a scene from an old movie, and then I'll talk about why I showed it to you when we're done.
Bid them out, good day.
Now I know you're thinking, anybody know what movie that's from? Mads, absolutely. It's an old Australian film. The man ran from Snowy River. And why I love that scene is it exemplifies what it looks like to be an entrepreneur. When you first showed up, you saw a group of people coming in. They were chasing after a bunch of wild horses. And a group of people came up there and they got to the cliffs and they stopped. But for whatever reason, Jim said, you know what? I know I've got the skills, I know I've got the talent, and I know I've got the horse to jump over the cliff and continue on my journey. And when I think of entrepreneurs, that's exactly what entrepreneurs have to do. Everybody else is going to tell you can't do it, that it's too hard and the journey's too rough. But if you know you've got the skills, you know you've got the stamina, you know you've got the right tools, jump over the cliff. It's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be hard. It's going to be dangerous. But it's worth it. It's worth it. And so I want to get that in your mind as we talk through that today, about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, because it takes guts. It takes fortitude. But it also, the difference here is, again, we'll go back to Jim, the rider that went over the cliff. He trained a long time to be able to do that. And the same way with you guys are going to take a big leap, but you've worked hard, and you're gathering the skills that you need to go do it. Go hone them and go make a giant leap, if you will. Let me talk a couple of entrepreneur examples that I did. My first delved into being a business owner is I owned a screen printing company called Rocket City Screen Printing. I looked around Huntsville, Alabama, and there weren't enough T-shirt makers in town, and there was a local college that was growing, UAH, and I saw, they needed someone to provide T-shirts to them. I could do this as a sideline business. It might help pay for my kids' college. And me and a buddy of mine decided to go into it, and we did our research. We bought the equipment. We went to school, and we were doing it on the weekends, and actually started out pretty good. And then 7 other companies decided to do the same thing we were doing, and we didn't have a marketing plan in place. And long story short, we went out of business. We were in business 2 years. And in the same kind of deal, I didn't know this at the time, but my business partner was in pretty difficult financial straits, and he declared bankruptcy and left me with the loan. And so I was a husband and a father with 2 children at home and a business loan debt. And I will tell you, I learned more going through that experience of what it's like to be in business than any class I ever took. I don't want to do it again. I don't. But I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. I wouldn't trade that at all. So that's, again, my first time I dove over the cliff, I failed. It was a failure. But I learned a lot from it, and I moved on. The second time is when I joined. I was with a company called Dynetics, and they decided to open a reseller arm, a value-added reseller back in right before the .com phase began, and we made relationships with the companies like Cisco Systems, like Checkpoint, like AdTran, like all of these host of technology companies, and began selling their products and services throughout the Huntsville, North Alabama market, and it was very successful. I got a chance to do a lot of things, which allowed me to go from there to Net Mechanic, where again I was a part owner of that business in the .com phase, and in that case it was like I said, it was a wild ride. It was loads of fun, and I learned things along the way. I learned that oftentimes, even though people say you're great, you may not be as valuable as you think you are. So let me tell you, on that particular company, when I first joined that company was valued at about $1 million. We rose into a valuation of $110 million back in the height. And then in one day, we went from $110 million to being worth $2 million. And then we sold for $1.5 million. And that's a wild ride, right? It's a wild ride. And so don't always believe the hype. Because the valuations at that point in time were just crazy and wrong. And had made no sense whatsoever, which is why the collapse happened. But a good ride nonetheless. And now I'm a current investor in an engineering firm called Link Research, and it's a unique company in the fact that it's not one that I'm looking to make a lot of money out of, but it's one I'm looking at to be socially conscious to make a difference. We're in a hub zone area. We're in a depressed area of Huntsville, and the goal of that company is to grow it up and provide engineering services, and then allow folks that are underprivileged or have difficulty or in poverty to work for us in different forms or capacities capacity and then get them out of the cycle of poverty. And so it's a difficult job. It's a lot of fun. I own about 23% of that business, but it is profitable. And but it's a really unique type of deal. I'll stop again. Any questions so far? Yes.
How hard is it to do that with Cisco Systems? How hard is it to do both?
It's a good question. So it is. It's time consuming. There are times there are competing priorities. It requires, I don't have a lot of weekend hobbies. I say I'm an entrepreneur on the weekends right now, and so a lot of that time is, when someone might be going out playing golf, I may be working on business things. So, yeah, but there are times there's definitely tension there. Fortunately, with Cisco, who I work for a very flexible company. They encourage me to do things like this. They allow me to I'm a part owner, but they also allow me to be on the board. So they expect me to be able to advise and that kind of stuff. What else? I'm going to move a little bit into talk a little bit about the current day and age and what we call living in a digital world. And honestly, you guys probably live this way more than I do because, you grew up with one of these, right? I didn't. Anybody here without one? Anybody decide to give theirs up? Anybody want to live without their computer, without their being connected? And so in this day and age, we are more connected than anybody ever has been before, which, thank you, because that's how I have a job. The reason because you're connected means you need a network, which means I sell more equipment. But it's important. Virtual reality. We're seeing advances in that technology today more than anything we've ever seen in your lifetime. There are people today that are able to perform surgery remotely and guide people because of the virtual reality that goes on. That can walk and solve problems in the building of buildings as they look through the lens of virtual reality before they're actually ever built. There's just so many unique things, and which I think for you guys is a great opportunity. You think that the things you can get involved in, the things you can dream up are limitless when it comes to today's technology. Robotics, another great example, and things that we're putting mundane tasks into these robots, and these robots are becoming more and more sophisticated. And I will be the first to tell you, it's not taking people's jobs away, it's giving people better jobs and more opportunity. And you guys ought to be the forefront of that as you think through what businesses you want to start and what business you want to do. You ever heard of IBM's Watson? What's it known for? What's that? Playing Jeopardy. Yeah. He did the deal, and no one could beat it. Well, IBM has taken that technology and everything that Watson can do, and now they're licensing it and allow it to be put on other things. And think about this: a third world country doctor who didn't have access to all of these different medical records, but all of a sudden has access to Watson and can ask Watson a question, and he can give him reality. And now this guy can maybe perform a surgery he couldn't have performed before because of all of the data and all the access he has that he didn't have before. Brilliant, right? How could you harness that into a product? What are things that you might be able to do with that type of technology going forward? You live in an amazing age. We live in a hyper-connected world today, right? Everybody is connected. I can control my power in my house from my cell phone. I can turn the heat up and down. Occasionally I do on my kids. It really drives them crazy. Remotely when I'm on travel. I can open my garage doors. I can do a bank transaction, and I can make a phone call. I can provide a video. I can record something. All with one device. Hyper-connected world. But we're unusual. We're in the USA. Is everyone that way? No. Not everyone lives the way we do today. In fact, they're estimating there are 5 billion more people that are not connected today. 5 billion more. So 5 billion more customers to go out and grab if they can get the internet, if they can get something to them. And so you've got these companies that are doing really, really interesting things. You've got a company called SpaceX that is trying to put satellites in orbit that can provide global coverage of the internet in a fast way. You've got a company like Boeing that is looking to launch, again, satellite constellations, a network of satellites so that third world countries can get internet. There's another company that has a high capacity, low Earth orbit satellite that is looking to do high broadband. Facebook is doing this, what they call this millimeter wave networking, and it's again a chance to broaden the reach that it can make with other customers. This one's interesting to me. It's a company called Aquila, and they have a series of low Earth, low flying planes that they're trying to keep up in the air for long periods of time to provide data connectivity across the country in places where you may not be able to boot towers or where you might not be able to run lines to provide connectivity. And the whole goal is so that more and more people can be connected. Google is trying this with balloons. Cheap, inexpensive balloons, and they send them up by the millions. Again, to continue to grow that web. 5 billion new customers, new students, new innovators, new inventors, new workers. Can you imagine what difference that makes? What that looks like in this world, in this country? What it looks like for you as an entrepreneur, a chance to go and grab that type of market. And the revenue possibilities for you as an entrepreneur are endless. As you tap into this world. Every country, city, they're all in this, what I call this digital world, and you guys lived it. So you guys don't think of a world without it. But I grew up when we barely had a computer. And I've seen great changes. And what I'm going to tell you is that I think what's happening today will totally transform what's happening tomorrow. And it's all because of little sensors. Little things like that's in the Apple Watch, little things that are helping monitor your health, little sensors that are doing all types of unique things there. Cisco and a company called IMD, we partnered together, and we did a survey. We created a consortium called the Global Center for Digital Business Transformation. And the goal of this was to go and look and see where transformation was happening, to look and see where possibilities for new technology was coming out, and really to see what is it doing to our business, and where are the threats coming from because of this transformation. And so we went out and surveyed a whole group of companies and businesses across the 941 different business leaders responded to this. And we found it very interesting that when the survey came back, they said 4 of 10 market incumbents will be displaced. So if you look out there, think of 10 major companies in a market. And because of the digital transformation, 4 of them will be gone. 40%. 3 years, major disruption. 41% view this disruption as a huge threat to their business model. Can y'all think of examples where that's happened? Yes. What's that? Amazon's a huge business disruptor. Who did they put out of business? Well, they bought Whole Foods. They didn't put them out of business. But I would say the local independent bookstore took a huge hit because of Amazon's disruption. The other thing that's going on right now, my business is getting hit hard by Amazon because of the cloud. They have this new cloud technology that they're going after, and there are people buying less of my stuff because they don't want it on campus, don't want it on premise, and they want to put it on the cloud. In the end, it will probably be a hybrid model there, but it's a huge disruptor, and things are definitely afoot and definitely changing. Anybody know the history of Kodak? You ever heard of that company? Anybody know who Kodak is? Kodak was the leader in film photography. They had the market captured. That's who you bought your film for. They're actually the inventor of the digital camera, right? They invented this camera, so they were the market leader. They were going to ride the reed. Well, so we, Cisco, back in 1996, we went to visit Kodak, and we told them, you know what? There's this thing called wireless networking. And we think you ought to build wireless network into your digital camera. It's going to be huge into where it's going to go. And they said, you know what? We don't care about this technology. It's going nowhere. It's not going to amount to anything. We just did it because somebody found it interesting. And so there's no way we're going to put wireless on that. What happened? Cell phones came about. They embedded the technology of digital cameras into the cell phones. And today, Kodak's a ghost town. This is the guy who he actually invented the digital camera in 1976. I love the fact there's a cassette tape associated with that. And it grew and grew, and then they lost track of their business, and now where are they? They're bankrupt. They're gone. All because they didn't anticipate the digital transformation, all because they didn't anticipate what was going on in the market. So if you look at what's going on today, and we've actually seen in 2 years, we've seen companies basically say there is a huge move in digital transformation. There is huge impact, and there are companies that are actively responding to this today. Why do I bring this up to you guys? It's opportunity. It's a chance for you to try and harness what that next product, next service is going to be. I'm going to skip this slide. Let me ask you a question. If we look at these products that we have up here, Facebook, Ford truck, the Mars rover that landed on the Mars made by NASA, all of this stuff, what do you think has the most lines of code built into it today? Most lines of software code? What? Who says Facebook? Who's going to say the Boeing 787? A smart move because that was built back in the 1960s and it hasn't changed much at all. But here's the truth. The Ford F-150 pickup has the most lines of code built into it today. 150 million lines of code in today. It stunned me when I found this out. Why do you think that is? Because, what's that? And they want to be connected. They want to be a part of the transformation. They want to see what happens, and they know this is what's coming. The amount of data coming out of this vehicle right now is unbelievable compared to where it's been. Unbelievable. If we look at the what we call the elements that create opportunity for disruptors, the first one is cost value. Is your disruption lowering the cost of something? The second one is the experience value. Is there something going on that makes it a better experience for the customer? Any kind of technology revolution you have gone to that has caused a better experience for you? Anybody taking an Uber recently compared to taking a cab 3 years early? It's a much better experience. What it takes to get someone to come pick me up now is a click of the button versus trying to hail somebody in New York is a nightmare. Incredible change and dramatic change. And then the value of the platform. Are there things going on that provides greater value to the customer, to the consumer, and and frankly to the business itself? We Cisco, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but we're seeing huge disruptive forces changing our business model. We're moving away from a hardware-centric model to a software-centric model because that's where we have to go. The hardware doesn't matter. We're getting to where we don't care about the hardware. You can use any hardware you want. We know the value for what we do is in our software and your ability to program it. So, for you, advice, create a better experience for customers and workers, and you'll succeed. Create a better experience for customers and workers, and you will succeed. I went over Uber. I'll give you an example. I was just the other day. I travel a pretty good bit for my job, and I went into a town. I got to the airport, and I did a search. So I usually stay at Sheraton properties, and so I said, let me look and see where my Sheraton is. And immediately, a little app came up and said, can I get you an Uber? Press this button. So I pressed that button, and all of a sudden an Uber came and took me to my area. It was easy. It was simple. Very intuitive technology. Think about connected cities, connected services inside your city, local city and state government. What if all you had to do to get a building permit was click a button? I recently built a house, and it was not easy. I had to go to the variance board. I had to take my plans to the city government. I had to get this approved. And it was really a difficult process. It shouldn't have been. It should have been automated. I need you guys to fix that. Finances. Think about that, how much easier it should be in finances. It should be a click of the button. They got all my data. All of your data lives on the credit boards. Why do I need to fill out these long, drawn-out, old, antiquated forms? It ought to be automated. It ought to be easier. Think about if in your hotels, if you didn't have to go to the desk anymore, you had a wireless sensor that said, "Hey, Todd's here. Would you like me to sign your room?" I pressed a button, and they give me a room. All this kind of stuff is possible because of the new connected reality. Automotive. What if your car told you when it was about to break down? What if it warned you that your timing belt was about to go? Wouldn't that be great? What if it said, "Don't take this car on a trip. It's only got about 1,000 more miles before it's going to break down," and you could do preventive maintenance. All that stuff is possible. That's the other reason you see Ford's, all the lines of code in the Ford car is trying to keep, to one, they want you to come back to their dealerships to get your car repaired, and the way that happens is by what they do. A couple of other examples of unique companies going on. There's a company right now that, and I hate to use the word, given the whole thing with Tide Pods recently, that all the people eating it, but there's a thing that will automatically order your Tide Pods for you when it's running low. It'll go to Amazon and send you a reorder, and then it just shows up. I don't even have to think about it. What if when your toilet paper was running low, you pressed a button and it orders you a new set of toilet paper? Data is a fuel for digitization. And using and analyzing and measuring that data that you need to digitize your stuff will take you far in this world. There's a company out in California that is basically making it so you don't have to worry about feeding meter for parking. It has a sensor there. You roll over the sensor and your phone comes up and it says, "Would you like to pay for this parking?" You press yes, and it takes care of it. Pretty cool, huh? There's a pill bottle that has a wireless sensor on it for old people that will automatically reorder and keep up with how many drugs they should be taking. And if they take too many, it notifies their doctor. So that again, providing health risks and things. This company really cracks me up. So, cows. What are you gonna do with technology and cows? I mean, they're just out in the field. Well, they found out that cows sometimes struggle giving birth. And the key for any rancher is to make sure they maximize the number of livestock that they reproduce in a given year. And so you want to make sure that they're with the cow when the birth happens so they can help it along the way and make sure they increase the number that survive. Well, they found out that a cow does this weird thing with its tail right before it gives birth. So this company designed a sensor that would send off an alert to say, "Hey, the tail's doing its thing. Go check on that cow." Amazing, right? But that's the type of stuff that's going on in this day and age. Again, we hit vehicles already. Here's an interesting one. Napa Valley in the wine country. Their goal is to make the greatest, nicest, sweetest smelling wine. Well, they figured out there's a formula to that. There's a perfect amount of rainfall. There's a perfect amount of sunshine. And they've got these sensors trying to optimize all that. And based on which type of activities have gone on during that year will tell them what type of wine they need to make with it. And they've tried, so the goal is so they can get the best tasting wine for the least cost of money and get the most value out of the room. They can do these charts based on the data that they have. And so for this group, they need to make Chardonnay. For this one, they need to make Riesling. And it's really based on data collection, optimizing that data, and then coming up with an app that tells them how to take care of that. I'm going to skip the inhaler one. It's a little long way, but it's an interesting one in the fact that this inhaler company has put GPS sensors on there, and they can find out if all of a sudden the people who have their inhaler are using it more often, and they can go and look and see if there's something in the atmosphere that's causing it. They found out one time that their asthma patients had a spike when the ships rolled in. Well, come to find out, the ships were carrying some type of product that produced some type of ash that promoted asthma, and so they got the ships to start taking more care so that less of that went in the air. A whole host of industrial systems. Smart buildings is another example of making these buildings, one use energy efficiently, but also keep track of equipment, keep track of where people are, give you risks of different types of intrusions, if you will. And it can all be done easily, automated, and save money. Again, a place for opportunity. Videos as a sensor, interesting, the incredible technology of facial recognition. You know, Facebook, Apple has done that now with their new iPhone 10. But we're seeing a huge value in that, and to try and decrease theft in stores, but also for entrance in, to try and cut down the number of security needed in buildings. Just a whole host of things, video. Self-driving cars, that's an interesting thing to talk about. Google's got one. Anybody want a riding one? Yet? It scares me a little bit at the moment. It does. But those things, here's the thing. I'm more concerned about the data it produces and less about the self-driving car. I think they're going to figure out how to make this car drive itself. But the cars themselves are constantly in keeping up, and there's tons of data that they pick up. Think about the applications for use of that data. Let's say if you're in a busy city and you need to find a parking place. Well, I guarantee you some self-driving car in that city has seen it and can say, well, it's on this deal, and 2 minutes ago it was free. Go over there. It's the closest one for you. There's a whole lot of sensors, and they're collecting this data. Do you know how much data those cars collect in a given minute? 4 terabytes of data a minute. It's a lot of data. A lot. 4 terabytes a minute. Can you imagine? What are you going to do with that data? Where are you going to store it? How are you going to use it? How are you going to optimize it? How are you going to make it useful? Well, that's for you guys to figure out. It's for you guys to figure. Again, loads of opportunity. I will probably stop here. I can go through a whole host of these deals. My point here is that you're in the midst of one of the greatest opportunities to be an entrepreneur that there's lived. I think it, back the .com phase was a great time to be a great entrepreneur, and you saw the likes of Amazon, you saw the likes of eBay come out of this. You saw our company was actually founded in 1984, founded out of Stanford University by a guy who worked in the computer lab, who saw an opportunity, spent the time, worked for the university to come up with a patent, and the next thing you know, we're a multi-billion-dollar company out of Stanford. For you, it's a chance for you to do great things. And so I hope I've had a chance to kind of tickle your fancy, inspire you a little bit. And now I just want to ask you what questions you got. What else can I talk to you about? Because I've run my mouth too long. Anyone? Bueller? Yes?
What's the best way a company can stay ahead of the curve as far as technology?
Great question. So there's 2 things that I would recommend, one is never stop believing there are threats. There's always threats, so you've got to constantly be reinventing yourself into who you are. And the second one is do your research. I mean, we have a whole team of folks that is out there looking for what the next big wave is going to be. We've been surprised. There are certain things that have surprised us. We as a company are not known for being the first guys to market. We are known for being the second, because we usually go and acquire the technology by buying somebody, or we go in and build on what the technology that just got introduced. Yes. Oh, great. Good question. So, one, becoming really good at interviews takes practice. And so it seems awkward and it seems weird, but do research, go online, look up there's lots of interview questions online, and sit down with somebody. Let some role play. You only get better by practice. Learn to have good conversations. Half the interview process is being willing to converse and talk intelligently. And the other thing is, anytime I go to an interview, I do my research on the company. I look, if I know who I'm interviewing, I go and look. Look, you could search me today and find a lot of information about me, whether it be Facebook, whether it be LinkedIn, whatever that may be. And you could bring up topics that would interest me. I'll give you an example. I interviewed a young woman last week. Her name was Emma. And Emma was interviewing for a job that, frankly, she wasn't qualified for. She didn't have the number of years of experience. But she did her research. She knew how to have a conversation with me, and she asked very, very good questions. And although she didn't get the job she was interviewing for, I looked at her and said, the minute I have a job that fits your skills, I'm hiring you. Because you knocked this one out of the park. So, yeah, good question. What else? Yes?
What are your main sources for connecting with news? Kind of knowledgeable about all that.
So, I mean, I read a number of, I read Inc. magazine, I read the Wall Street Journal, Google is definitely another one as well. There's a couple of blogs that I follow. I'll have to go and look up their names. And my company's very good about making sure I'm up to speed on some of that stuff. But good question. Thanks.
The company you're involved in, Think Research, you said that it goals not only profit but also to help people.
Yeah.
How do you find the right balance? Not that this is necessarily contradictory, but it may not always be.
But it's a great question. So when we set out that company, we basically said the first thing we have to do is we have to provide a good product. And so that's our number one goal. If we don't provide a good product, we're not going to be able to have extra money to help people. And we knew we couldn't do it all, and so we set aside a percentage of profits for that, and we haven't wavered because we just knew that we got to put a percentage back in the company, and then we can put a percentage to invest back in people. Cisco's done the same thing. Cisco's actually a very good corporate citizen. We have a foundation that where we're willing to help people, and they'll match, up to $10,000 a year. They'll let me donate to anything that I think of worthy, as long as it fits within their criteria. So it's the same kind of deal. What else? Yes?
You mentioned researching the culture of the company before you go and market it.
Yeah.
Did you ask any questions in your own interviews about the culture of a different firm, or is there something you missed?
Absolutely. I ask about, I typically always ask what a day in the life looks like, for work, and what that kind of looks like, and and what it, what the, I don't know if I put it in terms of culture, but I usually ask some question about, what is, what's the camaraderie like? How, does people get along? What does it look like to work here? Usually people are pretty honest. Around that, but and then the other thing I do is especially if I know people that have worked there, I make phone calls. And then there's a couple of websites that are pretty good about giving you some insights into, especially if they're a large company like ours, will tell you kind of what's like to work there, what's the negatives, the positives, those kind of things. But yeah, do your research though. It'll pay dividends, and it might keep you from going someplace and hating it. If I'd have done my research with, if I'd have talked to a couple of employees with a company I went to called Sigma Tech, I'd have never gone. But all I talked to was the president who won me over. Yes?
Is there some kind of optimum timing that you figured out with your experience for getting into companies? I mean, it seems really bad about the screen printing.
Yeah, it looked good on paper at first, didn't it?
Would you have done it, like you would go back and do it again, or would you say, I really should have watched where I was in my life before I did something?
So two things on that one. I made a poor decision in my partnership. And so, although he and I were friends and I thought everything was working, I didn't do my research with him how financially sound he was. And y'all know the old adage, the number one killer of good businesses, cash flow. And he didn't have the margin for us to go. To not be successful, he didn't have the margin to invest any additional when it didn't go as planned. So that was a mistake. And the other one is we probably should have done some more market research and then we would have probably seen that this company was up and coming in the town, or this company was up and coming in the town as well. So good question. You can't do enough market research, by the way. At some point, though, you got to pull the Band-Aid off and just go. What else? Somebody in the back there. Y'all are quiet. All right. Anyone? Yo, sorry. How did I cope? Well, that's a good question. So, go back to the adages that I learned at Mississippi State. Whether you like it or not, I learned, it was drilled in me to be excellent in what I did. And so I knew that in order to be successful, I needed to be at this job 2 years. And so I needed to go and power through and do a good job and then build relationships, because again, out of that first job I did make some relationships that got me my second job. But if I just done nothing and been just miserable, it wouldn't have gone well for me. And I had a wife that was pretty supportive to encourage me to say, hey, it's going to be okay. There are bigger things than your job. And then I found, I did try and find things that I liked about it. So I found small little projects and tasks that I liked to do. I really liked my customer themselves, and so I tried to put myself in front where I was doing more business development types of things and less engineering type work. So, again, it was difficult though. It was a tough 2 years, but it was the right move. At least I can't speak for it now, but in my day and age, if you weren't in a job 2 years, they looked at you and said, okay, they fired you. You just put it on your resume that you couldn't hack it. So, good question. Anyone else?
The entrepreneurship class has a back channel where they can ask questions and vote them up and down. So I'll throw you a couple that were on there.
I love that.
Yeah. One is a bunch of people were asking, what made you choose industrial engineering?
Oh, great question. I got asked that earlier today too. So I started out as a double E major. I took my first class in circuits and, and hated every minute of it. And thought, I can't go through 3 more years of this. So honestly, I left industrial engineering and went into communications. And it was a knee-jerk move. I was in communications for a semester. My dad he didn't say you've got to go back to engineering, but he looked at me and said, he taught me through, and he was very good, mentor for me to say, no, you've got the skills to be an engineer. I know you'll probably move into management. I know you've got the gifts, some other skills as well. And he was an industrial engineer, and so I looked at industrial engineering, and I really liked simulation. I really liked statistics and the management side of industrial, and I liked the broad view of the product building process that industrial engineers do. And so that's what took me to industrial engineering, why I chose it. It's probably more of a general engineering field than it is so specific like a chemical or a mechanical or a double E. Although the funny thing is, I probably hire more double E's than I do anything in my current job because of the nature of the business I'm in.
Another question is asking, what's your opinion on net neutrality regulation?
Great question. So I'm torn. And so I have 2 things about it. I'm not a huge fan of over-government regulations. I'm also not a huge fan of letting Comcast run the speed of my internet. Or the other or AT&T or Verizon or whoever that may be. So I probably tend to fall in, let the internet run free. However, as long as it doesn't stifle growth. And so if there's something about that by letting it just go free and open, and there's somebody who's getting more than their fair share as an individual on that, I probably would want to do a little regulation around that. So that's my, we as a company came out and said that we're for net neutrality, and don't think we should allow businesses to have a greater access to the internet than individuals.
Questions asking, with the wide range of Cisco's products, is there anything that you're most excited that Cisco's doing now?
Most excited. Okay, so if I look at our portfolio, there are two things that I really I'm really looking forward to doing. The first one is what we've done in the server market. It's a market that we only entered into 3.5 years ago. We started at the bottom, and now we're considered number 2 in the market, just under HP. And I love the technology advances we're doing there. I love the technology advances we're doing in the hyper-converged computing space, which is basically it's a box that's mostly storage and doing heavy transactions. It's revolutionizing what you can get out of a system quickly. And then the other thing that I'm excited about us moving into a software-centric deal where we're decoupled from the hardware. I think that'll open up a whole new field of things for us to sell. We did a deal recently with GM where all they did was buy our software. And they're going to run their IT system on our software, and we're not concerned about what the hardware they choose to use. So it's pretty cool. I will tell you, what scares me? Amazon. Amazon Web Services scares the daylights out of me. Because they're doing some really, really interesting things in that deal, and it's very sticky. When someone gets on that type of cloud services, getting off of it is very difficult. And so they haven't done it yet. They haven't taken part of my market share away, but they're on my radar to make sure that they don't. So, security is the other thing that scares me. Yeah. Anything else down there on the back web?
Yeah, let's see. So, a couple questions about what your typical day at Cisco looks like.
Oh, wow. So, I probably didn't tell y'all, I manage 10 salespeople and 10 indirect engineers. So they don't report to me directly, but they do fall under my purview. Well, I have a business partner who manages the engineers. And so a typical, I'll probably do a typical day in the life revolves around having conference calls on so whatever the latest big deal that we're trying to work on is, and where we are in the closing process, advising an employee, a young employee on career path work, meeting with customers and solving problems, whether we've had delivery issues, whether we've had things that have broken down, whether we're trying to get our customer service team to fix a software problem. I'm usually on one of those deals, and then looking at where we're going and where we are as a team and what's coming in for the week. And so at the beginning of the week, I have to call a number. I basically tell my management team that we're going to bring in this amount of dollars this week, and that ranges. My number for the year in product sales is $232 million. You divide that by 52 weeks divided by 5 days, you can guess what my typical week looks like. We average, anywhere from a low week for me is a couple of $1 million in business. A high week for me could be 25 million. And so, but I call that at the beginning of the week, and then we drive the way to the end of the week to see that we get there, and then we do it all again the next week, and then we evaluate how we did based on a quarter basis, and then we report to the street, and they come back and tell us how we did, and then we do it all again. We have a weird fiscal year. We run August to July. The good part about that is, if you're ever in sales, you'll realize this, is that I have a Christmas. because our year doesn't end during the Christmas holidays, and so I don't have to work at Christmas. In fact, we shut down the week between Christmas and New Year's. The bad part about that is I don't have a 4th of July because it's the end of our year, and we're usually really. I mean, I get the 4th of July off, but I don't take long vacations then. What else? We at the end of our session. I can talk as long as I want. So. You've been good. Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think of the Amazon automated, what's the word, convenience stores? They have a couple in Seattle, basically just walk in and grab what you want.
I think what they're doing in the grocery market is very disruptive and very interesting. I think it could go a long way if they can make that technology work. That technology that they're using still has a little ways to go. I don't know how accurate it is, but if it works, it's again a game changer. The ability to go in and just grab a few products and have it charged to your credit card without it's pretty amazing. So I mean, Amazon Web Services scares me, but what they've done for product purchasing is amazing, and it's we just went through Christmas. I probably purchased 75% of what I bought for Christmas on Amazon. Yep. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I didn't see you over there. Apologize for my back to you.
Being that you work with the Air Force, you have to have a certain clearance.
I do. I have a top secret clearance. It took me a year to get it. But it's funny, I have it to get access to facilities, but I don't read top secret documents necessarily. I have an engineer who does, but yeah, you do have to have a clearance, but mostly is for access, especially after 9/11. It became more and more important because they locked down a lot of those government buildings. And most of the things that I go to we only require secret clearance, and I have a top secret clearance for 2 customers that we have. We have a customer that does nuclear stuff, controls a nuclear arsenal that requires a top secret clearance for me to get in that facility. Anything else?
All right, thank you.
Guys, you've been fun.